Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, right as you pause there, I just looked down at my screen where we can see the little feed of our recording and noticed that I'm wearing a Rose Bowl hat and Cheez-It Bowl pullover, which feels like a real college football version of Inside of You, There Are Two Wolves. And one of them watched a Mike Leach air raid Washington State team take on Air Force in person in one of the greatest college football moments in the history of the sport. And then the other one is the Rose Bowl. So yeah, I don't even have it. I don't even have a comment here. It's just, this is what I'm wearing. Tony, what are you wearing? Tell me about your hat. Where'd you get it?
I found this hat in New Jersey. And did I find it? Of course, in a Rutgers suite. It's SHI, of course, from SHI Stadium in Rutgers. Who knows? And again, it's been so long ago, they couldn't possibly prosecute me for finding a hat in a suite that was unlocked. All right, it was completely unlocked. If you don't want me having a hat, lock up the suite. And it wasn't. So now I've got a hat. And again, statute of limitations. This hat could be more than $600-700. So I'm sure it's no longer an issue. And who's even missing it? I called. There was no lost and found. There's nothing in it. So I've tried to make restitution. I've tried to restore. Tom, can we please get to the listener question show before I incriminate myself any further?
That's fine. Yes, we pulled that out of Senator Clay Davis's suite at SHI Stadium. Yes. For the first one at RNRA91 question, do you think Coach Hartline is being stretched too thin with what appears to be a lack of wide receiver depth? It seems like a fair question. So I think this is, the premise of the question is you don't have Jeremiah Smith, you don't have Carnell Tate, and boy, there's a drop off behind those guys. Which, for one thing, you're not going to have a lot of Jeremiah Smiths. You're going to have a lot of drop-offs from Jeremiah Smith because Jeremiah Smith is a generational player, and Carnell Tate is probably also like at least a top half of the first round kind of NFL draft pick. Those guys do not grow on trees, and you don't have the 2021 Ohio State wide receiver room every year. That just doesn't happen. They have more talent coming in next year, and the guys who are there right now are young. They're not old and bad. They are young and continuing to develop, and in some cases young and continuing to develop and have been hurt. And so that kind of makes the premise of the question probably needs to be examined a little bit. The other piece is Brian Hartline, him being stretched too thin would presumably be because of play calling duties and being the offensive coordinator this year. That's something that he took on in February this year. All of the guys on the team were already on the team before then. These are not guys who have, he wasn't able to go out and recruit because he was too busy doing play calling stuff. All these guys who were recruited before he took over the play calling duties this spring. So yeah, to me, no, I don't think, I think there's two different ways. The answer to this is no, where it hasn't had a direct impact on the current roster, but also I don't know that I look at the current roster and go, this is a huge problem. I think I look at the current roster and go, these are young guys, and some of them are going to develop and some of them aren't. And that's how college football goes, even for Brian Hartline's position group.
I would agree. I also think part of the issue is this. Keon Grays, Caleb Burton, Caleb Brown, Kojo Antwi, all top 115 players from the class of 2022 should all be in their fourth year at Ohio State. They're all gone. Noah Rogers, a top 100 player from 2023 class. He's been at North Carolina State for the past 2 years. Brandon Ennis, a guy that, top a 5-star recruit from the 2023 class. He's the only guy that of the names that are basically viable right now that has been out there. Carnell Tate has been injured. You're seeing Mylan Graham as a redshirt freshman not able to get out there in the regular rotation. So I think there could be some question about, does Brian Hartline have enough time to develop the guys that are here? But I think the biggest problem is losing an entire recruiting class that should be seniors or fourth-year juniors at this point. And people can say, yeah, but generally they lose juniors anyway. Emeka Ibuka was a senior. Certainly he lost a year, but he stayed 4 years. You should be able to get some of your guys to stay 4 years. None of those guys ended up being good enough to play. So that's at Ohio State. So that's also a recruiting miss. That's evaluation. Nothing to do with being an offensive coordinator at that point. Those are just misses. And that happens. I do think it's okay to wonder if there's too much time spent as coordinator and has that impacted negatively the development of some of the younger guys like a Mylan Graham and really it's like that's like Demarion Witten as well. Like this might be maybe the third time we've ever said his name on a show. He's still on the team. He's he doesn't play, and it looks like he's a ways away from playing. So, I don't think that's the issue because they've all got jobs and help and assistance, and Devin Jordan is there as well. But it's something that we talked about earlier in the season, Tom, or before the season when we would go through the depth chart and you say, well, there's nothing proven really behind Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate at receiver, like nothing. And Brandon Ennis has some experience and Bryson Rogers very little and Mylan Graham none. Like all of these guys are blue chips, but there's nothing that we have seen from them that would give you the idea that they could just, that there wouldn't be a drop. And so there has been, and I just think that's partly because of, as you said, the two guys at the top are very, very much at the top, but why could you have an Austin Mack type? And to me, that's because those guys all left.
Yeah.
Transferred out.
Yeah. You lost a lot of guys to the portal where would some of them have developed? Yeah, potentially, but it's hard to get guys to stick around if they know they're going to be 6th or 7th on the depth chart. And, Demarion Witten is an Ohio guy. A lot of the guys you mentioned, Keon Graves was like an Arizona guy and Noah Rogers was a North Carolina guy. When you get out of state guys who don't necessarily have the specific tie to Ohio State where you grew up as a big fan or this is home or whatever it is, it can sometimes be harder to keep those guys around longer term. So yeah, I think that's certainly part of that conversation as well. I think you probably have to have another year of, okay, this is still an issue. This is continuing to be an issue where it's not just guys develop at different times. Guys have different ceilings. Evaluation of wide receivers is hard. I go back to Jaden Ballard and Marvin Harrison were part of the same Ohio State recruiting class. Jaden Ballard was rated as a better wide receiver than Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is currently cashing very large checks in the NFL, and Jaden Ballard is not really playing much for a not very good Wisconsin team. So it can be hard and there are no guarantees. And sometimes it's just Marvin Harrison was the hardest worker I think any of us had ever been around when he was with the Ohio State program. And Jeremiah Smith is kind of the same thing. So you can have the talented guys, and if they don't put in the work on the Monarch machine like Marvin Harrison did, where it was like a running joke where we'd be doing podcasts in the indoor. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, look, there's Marvin working on the Monarch machine again, to the point where he got an endorsement with Monarch for their machine. There's a lot of pieces that go into this that's not just the coach's stretch too thin. Is it possible that that's it? It's certainly possible, but there's a lot of other things that I think are certainly possible explanations as well.
While we're talking about that 2022 class, can I just mention they signed 21 guys. Do you know how many of those guys are walking as true seniors or walked as true seniors on Saturday of those 21 guys?
21. Well, I'm going to say it's like 4.
2. Sonny Styles and Caden Curry.
Wow.
Are the only 2 true seniors.
Yeah.
That ended up walking. And you've got some redshirt guys like CJ Hicks redshirting this year, Kenyatta Jackson, Carson Hinsman. Mm-hmm. But there's so many guys in that class that are long, long gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you've got guys in that class who are multiple stops down the road at this point, too. Yeah, that was a class that was reasonably well thought of when they brought it in. It's just, sometimes...
4th overall.
Yeah, that was also a class that you lost a lot of evaluation time during COVID and with all those COVID restrictions where you had a lot of swings and misses on quarterbacks around that era. And, Drew Aller, why was Drew Aller rated as a 5-star? Well, you didn't get a chance to evaluate it. Why was Quinn Ewers rated as the greatest quarterback in the history of the known universe? Well, you didn't get a chance to evaluate him the way you would have normally. So I think some of that is probably COVID era stuff that, is still, crazy as it sounds, still sort of getting washed out of the system to a certain degree. All right, next one from @OldPete, _Pete 1956. This is my 5th season following you and Tom. You two are 0-4 in the game and counting. I think we're at least 500. You and me. I think we've won at least 2 of the post game shows. My question is, if the Buckeyes lose again, will an alumni group buy out your contracts, Tony? My question to you: if you got the big oversized novelty check from an alumni group buying us out of the podcast, what's the first thing you're doing with your podcast earnings?
I'm going to buy some gold pants off of eBay.
And then show, look, I told you we won those 2 post-game shows.
No, I don't know. PS5? Who knows? Something practical. No, probably another Rose Bowl hat. They're pretty nice.
I'm just going to go start a new podcast. All right, next question. From @Ryan Ohio Sports. Why should Ohio State play any of their starters? Don't they have a playoff spot wrapped up? So yes, Tony, do you want to give the emotional and tradition-based and pride of the program sort of answer, and I'll give the cynical answer?
Sure. I do would like to know how many Ohio State fans, and I don't know that this is necessarily an Ohio State fan asking the question, but what is the percentage of people that feel this way? Like, yeah, we don't worry about it. Don't even play anybody against Michigan. That's not the real thing. It's got to be 2%, 0.8%, somewhere very low. But yes, no, this is part of the fabric of college football, Ohio State football. Ohio State and Michigan are tied together, and they will always be tied together no matter what any kind of fund is trying to do to them. But yeah, if there's going to be an Ohio State, there's going to be Michigan. Those 2 are going to play. You're going to want to win. There's bragging rights. There's recruiting. There's hate. There's agony. There's relief. There's just 51 weeks of pain of losing the year before and marrying that with the desire to never let it happen again. And then if it happens again, it's like, never letting it happen again. And then when it happens a few years in a row, then you start to question everything. You question reality. And so you've got to find a way to snap back into all of this. And so, yes, no, everybody's going to be going all out for this game. This will not be something that you just see, well, they'll treat it like Rutgers or they'll treat it like a spring game. No, it's much more important than that. And if you were to ever give it less importance, to me, that's where we start talking about firing head coaches. If you're like, this is not any kind of like, this is not important. This will be Tavian St. Clair's first start. It's like, no, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, all of that's true. Yes. Also, do you know how mad the folks at Fox would be if you did this? Oh man, they would be so mad. So mad. Do you know how much money Fox pays the Big Ten specifically because of this football game? This one football game? This is the TV draft that they do every year. This week is the first week that's picked every year. Every year. This game is on Fox every year because this is the game that is the biggest game in the Big Ten. Fox is writing a check with all of those zeros on it, and they are paying for all of this fancy crap at all of these schools and keeping these schools afloat in this time of financial turmoil because largely of this game. If Ohio State did this, Tony Petitti would be on Ryan Day's doorstep at halftime with a torch and a pitchfork and calmly suggesting that he revisit his decision. So there was just a conversation with the about the TV rights moving forward, and if they wanted to sell stuff individually. The price that I heard, and this is not something I've independently verified, the price that I've heard for the value of this game $100 million was the price that was put on, that they would sell this game if you were just going to sell this game as a separate package. You want to, this is like, there's certain people you don't want to make mad. And, the guys in jersey and the tracksuits. Yeah, sure. That is one kind of guy you don't want to make mad. Right. The people with the big attorneys, like the attorneys that with like the real fancy shoes and the offices with, like way up on the buildings with fancy glass and the steel. And you don't want to make those people mad either. It is a different kind of threat. No, you do not want to make Fox that mad. No, sir. The folks at News Corp will come after you and you will not like it.
Tony Petitti shows up to the WAC. It would be a shame if something happened to this place, and starts bashing things around with the baseball bat. Tom, you mentioned something that confused me. You said that Tony Petitti would show up at Ryan Day's house at halftime. Ryan Day would actually be at the stadium coaching, or are you saying he would not care to even go to the game? He's like, the starters aren't playing. I'm not even going to go there. I'll just leave it to Hartline and Patricia and all the rest.
Have you seen some of the stuff that Tony Petitti has suggested over the last few months? I mean, are you telling me that you think this is someone who, like, he motivated by anger? Absolutely. Like, well thought out plan. Like, can I tell you about the 2014 playoff, Tony? Well, listen, we don't have time for that. But yes. So yes, TLDR. No, they're probably not going to do that. But you at some point you start pulling on the threads of the like absolute fabric of the program if you do that. And the potential payoff is, well, in a hypothetical world where someone gets hurt, then we would wish we had done this. But that is quite a price to pay for, potential hypothetical health benefits, maybe.
Can I mention one more thing? Now I'm just picturing Tony Petitti furiously reaching for a phone book, flipping to the D's and looking for Day and grabbing it, just ripping out the page, thinking that his address is in a phone book and that there's actually a phone book that he can go and rip a page out of. And then he's just going to drive over to Ryan Day's house and say, you put that number 10 in a quarterback right now.
At Buckeye Kid 09 says, how much will we lose by if offense plays like they did against Rutgers last week? So I guess the question is, what do you mean by plays like they did? Because plays like they did involves the personnel on the field. Plays like they did involves the play calling, the approach to the game, which, is obviously tailored to the opponent. So it's not going to be exactly the same. If Ohio State has no Jeremiah Smith, no Carnell Tate, and goes to the really run-based offense, they're certainly not going to run for 6 whatever yards per carry like they did against Rutgers. It's probably more like 3.5 or 4. I don't know that they lose automatically because there's a whole other side of the ball where Bryce Underwood still has to go against the Ohio State defense, and I don't know how much Michigan's going to be able to run the ball. It certainly is a low-scoring game. It would certainly fall in the bucket of rock fight at that point. And if Michigan's going to win the game, I think it probably is very, very likely going to be a rock fight. Like if you just tell me the score is 17-13, I give Michigan probably a coin flip chance of winning that game. If you tell me that the score is 35-28 or something like that, I give Michigan about a 10% chance of doing that outside of Ohio State throwing a ton of interceptions. So yes, it is a game that Ohio State could lose, but it's also a game Ohio State could win. Ohio State can win a rock fight. Ohio State has the defense to win a rock fight, 100%. I don't know that Michigan has the offense to win a shootout. So, if they go with the exact game plan they did last week and they play the same guys they played last week, you're not going to put up 42 points against Michigan, but you might put up 17 or 20, and that might be enough for them to win.
Would have been last year, and I think that's clear. I think the wonkiness that sticks out in most people's minds is just the usage of Lincoln Keenholz. Like, what was that about when the game was still real and going on? It was just like, this is odd. But if Ohio State, just as they did against Rutgers, carries the ball 38 times and throws it 22. I like the Buckeyes' chances in that one because that one tells me that they are running the ball well and they don't need to throw it and things are in control and that they're just putting this game away. So in that way, and not that you can rush for 254 yards necessarily against Michigan, maybe you can, but if they're running the ball that much more than they're throwing it, I think that's because they are winning and feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of numbers in there that if you said, if you tell me Ohio State runs for 254 yards, I'm feeling pretty good about Ohio State's chances. If you tell me Ohio State has that run pass mix, I'm feeling pretty good about Ohio State's chances. Because the way you hit that run pass mix is your yards per carry is probably at least 4.5 or so if you're going to run it that much. But your yards per pass attempt is probably in the 20s if you're only throwing it 22 times for Ohio State. Unless the forecast gets a lot worse, that's probably you're hitting some big plays and then you're up and then you're trying to run out the clock essentially. So yeah, I think, I don't know that Ohio State doing exactly what they did. They're obviously not. I understand the hypothetical, but I don't know that Ohio State doing exactly what they did last week precludes them from winning this game.
Well, because then you can also say, what if Michigan does exactly what they did against Northwestern or exactly what they did against Purdue or Michigan State or...
Okay, let's play this out for a minute. Michigan is -5 in turnovers against Ohio State and misses 2 field goals. These are the only pieces of information you have. What is the final score?
Well, the first number that pops into my mind is 42-0, and that's going easy because 5 turnovers... that could be like a 59-0 type of thing if you're turning the ball over that much. So, I'll meet you in the middle. 52-0.
There you go. What great diplomacy on Tony's part. I'm sure making everyone happy. Ohio State fans, no. We're not going to give you the 59. Michigan fans, no, not the 42. 52 points. There you go. 52, Ohio State 52, Michigan nothing. A score that would leave everyone leaving the stadium happy.
I didn't realize I was giving my pick this early in the week, but there it is. A finger off the checker. Can't change it now. So if you're watching and you're still watching, and if you want to hit the thumbs up, we would appreciate that. And of course, if you're listening, 5-star rating and review is always welcome. And you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up, say hello to us there on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. We are now done with the listener questions show for the Ohio State side of things. We do have one coming up from Michigan fans that have some questions. And if you are a Michigan fan watching this, you want to throw a question in the comments, we might still be able to get you in there. And if you are a Michigan fan in the comments, please keep it civil. I know a lot of them have. Appreciate that. And appreciate all of you guys tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.